Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our first webinar of 2013, and lots of big news and lots of changes just happening over the past couple of weeks. You're all in listen only mode, and that's probably good because I know David's got a lot to rattle through here. So I'm going to go ahead and kick it over to David for our Buzztouch 2013 update.
Well, good morning, everybody, or afternoon, or possibly even evening where you are. I'm happy to participate in this webinar and kind of bring everybody up to speed on where we are. I'm certain that we'll have a lot of questions, which is completely okay. And so I'm just going to start out with a couple announcements. And what we'll do is I've got a list of things here that I want to kind of introduce everybody to, and we'll go through some announcements, and then we'll take some questions, which are always fun. And then we'll just kind of go from there. And I think we have about an hour. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Let's see if I can find the screen sharing button here. Or maybe Warren needs to give me that control. I'm not sure if you guys can see that or not. But the first thing I want to talk about, in fact, yeah, here we go, share my screen. So you guys can probably all see this now. The first thing I want to talk about is this message in all of your control panels. And this is going to, you see a little notice up here when you log in. I put this up on the 2nd of January, or I should say we put this up on the 2nd of January. It says this message will self-destruct in a few days. And so we're close to this message self-destructing, and then we'll put a different message up here. But this was our best effort at explaining, just in a little summary, what we've been up to lately and what we're up to, what we're going to be up to here in the next few weeks and months. Of course, anytime we put any kind of news like this up, you know, we get 1,000 questions and all kinds of inquiries, which is completely okay. But the most exciting news, as far as I'm concerned and as far as we're concerned around here, is the announcement and the introduction of our new team. And most of you have probably seen this About Us page recently. And if you haven't, I encourage you to go and explore this. But the most significant thing about 2013, and the most significant and exciting piece of news that we have is we have some new team members. And this new leadership team that we've assembled, boy, what a blessing for us. And we are very, very happy and excited to begin to work with some people that most of you have already interacted with a little bit in the forum. All of these people are extraordinarily talented in their individual ways, and they bring something to Buzztouch in each of their cases that we just didn't have before. And most of you already realized, but some of you may not have realized, that for the last few years this has been a very, very small operation. And you know, arguably it's been, you know, one guy kind of trying to hold it all together and trying to wear all those hats, which of course would be me. Now certainly I received a lot of help in the forum, and we've got a lot of different you know, wonderful people in our community who've stepped up and helped me over the last couple of years, but none of those people were helping me in an official capacity. So we're really, really excited to introduce these folks. And so I'm going to go through them one at a time real quick and just talk about you know, what they're doing for us. And so Stephen Mercurio, who's been my business partner for a long time, is still here. And he's still doing what he's always done, and he's helped me manage a lot of the account questions and a lot of the membership stuff. And we'll get into the membership questions here in a minute. But Stevens lives here in Monterey, just like I do, and like I said, a longtime partner and just a tremendous asset. Chris Robbins, you guys may know Chris from the podcast. We reached out to Chris and asked him if he'd be interested in getting involved, and we were able to convince him that it would be a great idea to become partners with us. Chris is in Fredericksburg, Virginia, which to me is back east. For those of you not in the United States, that's about 3,000 miles from the West Coast. Ian, who is our favorite piano man in the forums, Ian's in Southern California, which is, I guess you could say, just down the road from us. What an amazing guy Ian is, and I think that most of you have noticed, certainly over the last couple of years, but you know, it kind of in a big time way over the last month or so, his participation in the forum is just tremendous. And so Ian's going to be helping us kind of redesign this new user, we're calling it the new user experience in the registration process. It's important to us to make some big improvements in how we welcome aboard new site visitors. Susan, most of you know Susan. Susan is really, I think, going to take this plug-in market that we have from the concept idea to something that we can, be real proud of and hopefully grow and kind of extend as we move into the future. One of the challenges with the plug-in market, of course, is we introduced it at the beginning of last year to kind of see what happened. And of course, one thing that happened is we got overwhelmed with a lot of things that we weren't expecting. And so having Susan, take that by the horns and take charge of that is going to be really, really nice. Warren, who you all know from these webinars. And I didn't tell you where Ian is. Ian's in Southern California. Susan's in I call it the Midwest, but it's the northern part of the Midwest in Minnesota. In fact, I might have even said that like someone from Minnesota. At any rate, Warren, who's also in the Midwest, south of Susan, a couple hundred miles, has already begun a lot of great work in terms of organizing these webinars and these events. There's kind of two different phases to these events and these webinars and these get-togethers. Phases as in, a lot of this stuff is online, and managing the registration process and just the scheduling, all that is challenging, and trying to engineer and come up with what should we be talking about in these webinars is one part of that. And the other part of that is coordinating with people really around the globe who are interested in getting meetup groups together in person and trying to help those people who are interested in putting a group together. Sometimes that could be for fun, sometimes that could be for some learning. Additionally, we're going to be doing some kind of Buzztouch sponsored events throughout the year, we hope, and that's one of those member benefits we're talking about. But Warren will be the guy behind all of that. And then Tony Christo, who's Magic Man in the forums. Tony's been working with a lot of partners that we've been trying to do business with, and it's really, really challenging to create formal, lasting, strong relationships with other businesses that can help all of you guys, all of our users. A simple example would be a service like Scringo, which is a great service that allows you to do some neat things in regards to socializing your app. It would make sense that some of those features and gadgets that some of these third parties develop would be a more formal part of the Buzztouch process. And so Tony's been reaching out to a lot of partners. Another example of partnership work that just takes a ton of time is, imagine like the whole one-click install, or simplifying the install process for a self-hosted customer at a third-party site. Imagine going to Rackspace, for example, and installing your Buzztouch control panel without a whole lot of effort. So that stuff takes a ton of time, and Tony's doing real well in that regard. And then Trish is an amazing communications, public relations person, and it may sound trivial, but we get a lot of inquiries and we get a lot of questions and we get a lot of stuff kind of thrown at us as it relates to the press, and we've never really had any kind of professional help in terms of how to manage all that stuff. And so Trish is really bringing some skill to the table when it comes to just how we communicate with you guys, our audience, and then of course other people who inquire. And so we'll be relying on Trish to kind of craft some appropriate messaging and all that kind of stuff. But the team is really, really strong, and we're really, really excited to have them. I've been hearing a lot of questions about their status in our eyes. Like, are they employees? Are they friends? Are they people from the forum? Yeah, they're friends. Most of them did come from the forum, but officially they're our business partners. The people on this list have taken a leadership role, and they have a significant interest in helping Buzztouch succeed and helping you guys, our customers, succeed. And you can rely on them just like you can rely on me to do the very best they can at whatever capacity you need them to. But yeah, this is a formal thing, and we're very excited to go from 1 or 2 of us to 8 of us now. So that's the first announcement, is the team. And then the next announcement, and I'll talk about this and then we'll take some questions because I'm sure it's going to be a bunch of questions, is this decision that we made to transition to a membership model. And when I say a membership model, the easiest way to say that is, what do we sell and how do we sell it? And for those of you who have been around for a while, you may already kind of know a lot of this stuff, but we didn't have anything to buy or anything for sale in terms of software or service or product or anything like that until April last year, April 2012. After quite a few years worth of work, We finally just kind of had to start figuring out what it was that was going to be our formal offering to try to bring in some revenue and pay the bills and kind of take this thing to the next level. And so, yeah, we did some development work throughout in the past, and we brought in some revenue in a lot of interesting ways, but we really wanted to try to formalize what our offer was on our site and as it related to the software. And so we announced the several different kinds of upgraded accounts. And in fact, we went through a few different adjustments in terms of what you got when you upgraded and what you didn't get. And really what we found, there's two key things that we found. One, which really drove us to this change this year. One was it was very, very confusing to understand what it was that we were offering and what it was that we were selling. And confusing as in on our end, very, very challenging to kind of manage all of those different types of accounts and questions related to those accounts and inquiries and very natural stuff like that. And then also confusing for our customers. It was difficult to make a decision like what kind of account do I need and what am I going to get and all those kinds of things. And so those are the two biggest reasons why we kind of knew that we were going to need to make a change, and we weren't real sure what that change was going to be. And I've always been focused on trying to come up with a fair, valuable, easy to understand offer that lots of us can take advantage of. And a lot of people do want to support us and they do want to buy products from us, but it's not fair for us to expect them to buy products that they don't understand, that don't necessarily represent a value. So we decided on a membership model really to streamline and to simplify this. A lot of people have asked, especially those who had upgraded previously and were paying us monthly, why would we do this? It seems like such a savings for the customer. And yeah, for most customers, actually for all customers who had upgraded, it is a savings. Even the cheapest account type, which was $9.95 a month or $10 a month, this is nearly 30 or 40% less than that. And some of the more expensive account types, the self-hosting account and some of those other things that we used to see, this is a significant savings. So the reason that we're able to do that and we're confident with the structure of the pricing now, it's pretty simple. It's volume. We think that we can get more people to become members and understand the value of that than we could to get kind of navigate their way through that upgraded account process. So we think that if the volume is what we predict and what we hope and what we're shooting for, then all of us can save a little bit of money. All of the members can save a little bit of money because there's more of us. And so those are the reasons behind the membership model. And so that's about 15 minutes we just burned on 2 announcements. And why don't we take that moment to take a couple of questions, and because there's going to be a lot of questions. If you have questions about features and things, let's save those until the next little bullet point. But if you have questions about the team members or the membership model decision or offer, go for it. Let's see if we can answer some of these.
Well, David, I don't have any hands raised right yet.
Okay.
So
Good. We'll give them a little minute here and see if any hands come up. Usually we'll get 1 or 2. Maybe not. Maybe I just said it very, very well.
We'll give you credit for that one, David.
Yeah, we'll give you credit for that. Okay.
All right.
So no questions. We'll move on, and you can come back and ask questions about any of this stuff as we move through. It's completely okay. Software and features. We've been working really, really hard on the offer as it relates to software. One of those features that you've already seen in your control panels, if you snooped around a little bit, is this concept of live versus design mode. And in our little self-hosted panel, which I'm running right here, I'll give you an example of what that's supposed to do. So we have a new option here on the left called Publish Changes. And you'll see it's got a red dot. And that red dot means that I have made a control panel change somewhere in the system since the last time I clicked this Publish button. So the idea is, when you publish an application to a market or an app store and you distribute it on devices, what we were running into is oftentimes users, app owners, were actually breaking their apps. Sometimes that was because they didn't understand what they were changing. Sometimes that was because of some problems on our end. But the fact is there was a pretty good chance, or at least some chance, that if you made a significant change in your control panel, when the users were alerted of that new content and they hit, refresh or, download the new version of the new content, the application wouldn't behave as expected. And that was just bad for everyone. It raised a lot of questions. It caused a lot of grief. And we've been talking about this for at least a year. How are we going to solve this? And so without getting really, really complex and without, a bunch of different confusing, choices in the control panel, it's kind of a challenging problem to solve. So what we've done is we've done two different things. One is we introduced this publish changes process. And then the other thing that we introduced is this current mode, and I've got a red circle around it here in your control panel, in the JSON data that powers your app. So when you download your application, we're all familiar with the JSON data that we download. And you can see it here. I just went to the config data for this screen. And now there's two choices. We have design mode data and live mode data. And you'll notice that the current mode will switch depending on which one of these I look at. And so the idea, oh, there's my self-hosted panel with an error, but the idea is once you publish in the store, when you go to publish to a store, you're going to want to switch this to live in your Xcode project. And that way, when you make changes in your panel, they aren't noticed by the devices until you click publish. And then once you click publish, you'll notice that this button up here in the publish changes will go green because the two versions match. So the idea would be that after an app is in the store, you would then connect your device and connect your work in the simulator and all of that in design mode while you worked out your next version. And then when you were ready to push those changes to all your users, you would use the publish button. So pretty slick little approach. It also allowed us to engineer a lot of different things in the back that you guys can't see that really speeds up those live apps. So when you do publish live and you do compile that application with this current mode set to live, you should notice that your end users get downloads of that data much, much faster. And so that's one of the significant changes that we made that you'll already notice. Then the other significant change that we've been working on that you haven't seen yet, which I'm sure a lot of you will have questions about, is this concept of push notifications. And so push notifications are a complex thing. There's a lot of reasons that people get confused on the process, but the biggest reason is just a complex process. A lot of people assume that you can send a notification as a developer or an app owner directly from you, the app owner, to the devices. And that's just simply not the case. Whether it be Apple or Google, iOS or Android, you can't send devices or messages directly to devices, and that's because you don't have a connection to those devices. Phone companies and networks and things like that don't allow us to go right to the device. So instead, we send messages to a push notification system or service. And in the case of Apple, it's called the Apple Push Notification Service or system. And in the case of Google, it's called the Google Cloud Messaging, actually, GCM for short. So what the control panel allows us to do now, and you see that I'm using it here, but we've not rolled this out on the Buzztouch.com site yet. What the control panel allows us to do now is send a message from our back end to a device through those services. So we're actually sending it to Apple or we're sending it to Google, and then they deliver it on to the device. And so it's pretty slick. And so what ends up happening is in our core settings of our application, we've got two new changes here. You'll see the push notifications option. And there's two things here. One is we need to prompt the user to allow push notifications. In other words, we can't send messages to devices unless the users agree to allow that. And then the other thing that we need to do is we need to register the device with a backend or with a database. And so this URL here is the technical term for, hey, where do you want this phone to register? And so that idea is when a device agrees to accept push notifications, it will then register itself with your database, be it self-hosted or at buzztouch.com, and then you can send messages to those devices. So you'll have development devices, which are probably just going to be your devices, production devices, those in the wild, and then of course Android devices, which doesn't have a distinction. And so when you create a message, you'll send a message, and you can set the badge number on the device, which is an iOS thing, or you can erase the badge number. And then you'll have a queue down here where it says push notification queue, and then our systems will process the messages in your queue and send them out as rapidly as possible. And so there's a lot of technical questions around this, which we probably don't want to entertain today because we'll just bog down the kind of the State of the Union 2013 with technical stuff, but we can take some simple ones if you want. But there's some complex stuff over here that people might not understand. And
Hey,
so those are
David,
the two biggest. Yeah, go ahead.
I did want to interject
Yeah,
a couple of things. One, we put together this Buzztouch webinar schedule for January. So some of these topics that you're covering we'll go into in much greater detail over the next month. So
exactly.
look at that schedule. You'll see either a 60 or 90-minute session to talk about live versus design mode and push
Mm-hmm.
notifications. I did have a question though related to these. You're showing us features here. Which of these features are reserved for members only, and which ones are available to everybody?
Yeah, great question. So the published changes, the live and design mode is available to everyone who visits buzztouch.com. And of course, it will be available in the next release of this self-hosted panel, which will follow our rollout of the push notifications on the buzztouch.com site. So the published changes, live and design mode feature is available to everyone. We think it's an important part of just improving our foundation and our platform. And we don't think that it should be reserved for members only. And then, of course, the other concept there is a lot of the member benefits that we have direct costs for us to deliver. And so in the case of this live versus design mode, there's not actually a direct cost for us, so we can offer that to free visitors of our site. The push notifications, however, is a different story. The push notification process will be available only to members. There's this kind of a special circumstance that we can talk about now. We'll just touch on it a little bit. If you're running your own self-hosted control panel, in theory, you're already a member because you're relying on that API key, but it's possible to become a member and set this software up and then maybe not renew your membership next year or something. In that case, and really any case when you're talking about self-hosted, your self-hosted server, this software, will send those messages through your own box, through your own back end, which means that you don't really have a dependency on us to send push notifications through your back end when you use this software. There's a lot of questions related to that. Most of them are related to performance. We expect a lot of people to wonder, like, well, what if my back end can't send push notifications to a large number of devices, say 50,000 devices or something? And now's not the time to talk about that, but we do have some strategies for that. But in essence, push notification messages will come from your own control panel on your self-hosted server if you're running it that way. So push is going to be members only on buzztouch.com, and of course self-hosted because that's now a member-only benefit. And live design is for everybody. So good question. Good
Okay.
question.
I did forward you a couple more questions there, two from Tim Wolf and
Awesome.
one from Sean McMean.
Okay, perfect. I'm seeing, oh, they're in the chat window, not in the questions window. Okay, cool. So let me get a grip on what I'm looking at here, and then we'll take these. Warren. From Tim Wolf, how long do you expect people that were members from the beginning to continue to be free? That's a great question. And actually, we had a little bit of a challenge trying to figure out who should be asked to pay for a membership and who should not. It wasn't an easy question for us. The question about whether it be free or not, or whatever your annual price of membership is, when you became a member this week, last week, if you've already done that, that will be your membership price next year. That'll be your renewal rate. So if you were one of our, pretty small list of people that we actually gave that membership for free to, you won't get a bill next year. Also from, hang on one sec, excuse me? Yeah, sorry about that, guys. Also from Tim, ETA for push being live. We're shooting for next week. I say shooting for because I'm really, really bad at my predictions for technology rollouts. I can tell you that it's working well on our end. We've got a lot of stuff to work out still with the live and design mode as kind of bugs trickle in with that. Still some membership questions. The schedule for that's going to be finishing the complete rollout of the live and design mode, introducing the push notification platform on the buzztouch.com site, working through whatever gotchas turn up there, they always do, and then releasing the latest version of the self-hosted panel. So I'd like to say next week. Who knows what day next week, all that kind of stuff. Sean McKean's asking, just plain text allowed. He's probably referring to the push notifications plain text. Yeah, version 1, that's exactly what it is. Plain text messages. I think what he's referring to, and a lot of people may be aware of this, is there's this concept of things that a lot of people call rich messaging or rich notifications, which might be, you know, a fancy web page or a video or something like that. We've got a lot of ideas and plans to kind of disrupt that push notification kind of market a little bit in the future, but today we're starting with text only. You can add a sound effect and you can add a badge number, but other than that, yeah, that's going to be the first rollout. David Barber, do I have to send an update to Apple before I can implement live and design? Yes, you do. It says that in your control panel. I'll go to my control panel here, and I'll show you. There's a big message right here. The reason for that is your application that's already, in case of David's question, your application is already in the market, and it already has configuration data compiled in it that does not have this current mode. So it's everybody's defaulting to design so that the behavior doesn't change. You make a change in your panel, your devices are going to notice it. So if you recompiled and set this current mode to live, then you could take advantage of that. Daku7, is there an API for push notification? I have 10 apps and I want my customers to log in to an external website and send a message. Today there's not. We've talked about a lot of, you know, hopes for that. It's kind of a unique situation where people, you know, advanced users have asked that a few times, and we can explore a lot of ideas in that regard. You're posing an interesting question here where you say, I want my customers to log into an external website and send messages. So because I don't really know what who your customers are, our intention is that the API in the push notification system is for your use, not your customer's use. And maybe I'm misunderstanding what you mean there. But that's kind of our intention, is we're going to allow our members to use our push notification system. And I think that everybody would understand that we're not imagining or not anticipating customers of our members using our back end to push messages. And maybe I don't quite understand what that means, but good question nonetheless. And maybe you're talking about your self-hosted panel, in which case you can do anything you want on your self-hosted panel. But I would imagine that unless you're giving them logins, which maybe you are actually. Maybe you're giving your customers logins to your panel. If you are, then they can visit their application and send messages. So that's kind of, hopefully that answers that question. Will self-hosted control panel users of a particular app have push notification access? Yeah, in fact, I think I just said that. Yeah, so if you created an app, and that raises another question, right? Maybe you want to prevent that. Might be a good thing to, a good feature to add in the future. But every application's control panel, when the owner logs in, the app owner sees these options on the left, and push notifications is one of them. Now you could, as the owner of the control panel, in essence, you could disable this just by not providing the necessary credentials to send the messages. And so, like I said, there's a lot of technical stuff in terms of how it works, but I can already think of a few ways to not allow your control panel users to send push if you so choose. Mark Fleming, so for live design mode, some people will see changes until they have updated their apps with the new config file. Correct? Not everyone will update the apps they have installed, but will continue to update the apps they've installed, but will continue to use old versions. That's a great point. And the answer would be yeah. In that example, yes. So let's say that there's 1,000 people using your app. Right now, they're all in essence in design mode, just like they were before. Every change you make in the control panel, they're going to be told about. But let's say that you push an update out that has the live mode setting, and only some of your end users update the app to the new version. That brings up a great point. That's correct. If you make a change in your control panel and have apps that are out there that don't have any understanding what this live mode even means, then that's correct. They will notice those changes. Great point. And so we're going to, let's see here. There's another one here, Miguel, our good friend Miguel. Can you send notifications to just development devices? Absolutely. So if you look on this control panel here, you'll see a couple of check marks. So the concept here is certainly you'll want to do some testing to your own device prior to sending it to a large list of devices. And so the way that that works is with, and this is kind of technical, but I'll try to simplify it a little bit, is when you send messages to the push server through Apple, you're sending them through either a development process or a production process. And so you have two certificates you can see here where you upload these certificates. You tell the control panel, this is my development certificate and this is my production certificate. You'll have two of them here and you'll upload them, and they're called PEM files. And so you would upload your development certificate. You would select just the iOS development devices, and then you would type your message and send. And then assuming that you're happy with that, you would probably resend the same message to all of your production devices and send that message. So yeah, great question. Google's a little bit different in the cloud messaging service, the Google GCM. They have, in essence, it has to do with the way that your application is compiled, whether it's debug or live. So we'll take that one later. But let's move on to some more announcements here in my control panel. I'll go back here. We talked about software and features, and then we need to talk about this existing account holders not losing anything concept. It has a little bit to do with the membership discussion we just had, but I want to retouch on this because it's an important concept. We're not taking anything away. There's genuine concern by some of our paying customers who had previously upgraded their accounts, about what they're going to lose if they choose not to become members. And the good news is most of them are choosing to become members, so it's kind of a moot point. But some of them are not, and that's okay. And the fact is they're not losing anything. We are not here to take things away from people. We've posted a link here in the control panel that's called membershipinfo.php, and this just talks about some of those options for some of these people who have upgraded accounts. And so we've tried to explain that. Really the only link leading to this is on the membership screen. If you're an upgraded customer who has not become a member yet, you'll see a link to that information page. So that's something that we needed to touch on there. But the core concept being, yeah, we're not taking anything from existing members. Let me go back to the announcement page so that we can talk about that. Account holders, understand that you might have questions, so we talked about that. Let's talk about a new site design. Another announcement that we need to make, or something that's related to our changes in 2013, is we had a logo design contest about 6 weeks ago, and we got lots and lots of submissions for that contest. We are not yet ready to announce the winner, but we will be soon. We're happy with the volume of logos that were submitted, and it just makes us smile to see how many people are supporting us in this. And we will be announcing the logo winner along with kind of a freshened up look in terms of our homepage and some subtle changes throughout the site, because it's important that we evolve this thing and change it. Kind of the tradition has been is with each passing January, we've kind of had a new look on the site, and we hope to roll that out soon. And so before I get to the next announcement, Warren's got one more question in the panel here. Chad Hammer asks, how would we convert the P12 certificates to a PEM certificates for sending to push devices? That's a pretty technical question, but the answer is you use the terminal application. So you would open up terminal on your Mac, and there's a few command line commands that you would enter to convert those. It's not challenging, but it is technical. You can, of course, Google that, how to convert P12 to PEM. It takes about, I don't know, a minute for people who have done it a bunch, but I'm guessing a lot of our audience will struggle with that a little bit, and that's part of our expectation, a part of why we're trying to roll these things out slow. And again, I don't think we should get too technical on that right now. But yeah, there's a process to do that, and your Mac will do it for you. It's not too difficult. The last announcement that I have before we take some more questions is in relationship to some of these partnership programs you're going to see that we're going to start announcing here as soon as we can. Tony on our team has been working with a few third-party businesses and a few third-party online services to create some meaningful partnerships for us. You heard me mention Scringo, so I'll talk about Scringo. Some of you may have heard me talk about Applets a few months ago, where we have a partnership with Applets. So Scringo and Applets are companies that we believe bring meaningful value in some way to our customers and to our user base and to you guys. And so if we think that there's a good partnership to be had, and we think that there's a benefit in it for you, then we hope to not only seal that relationship but make that announcement. And the easiest example would be, we'll go back to the hosting example. Let's say that Rackspace has a whatever virtual cloud for 70, 80 bucks a year or something, and you want to run your self-hosted panel. Wouldn't it be nice if they made that easy for Buzztouch members? It seems like a no-brainer to us that companies like that would want to offer our members additional benefits. And so we've been working a lot on those fronts. It's not easy. It does take time. But as time rolls on, we have some pretty exciting partnerships that we're going to announce. But I won't make those public until they're actually final, because that wouldn't be fair to those partners. Looks like Ian has his hand up. The little message says Ian has hand up. Does that mean I should say, "What's up, Ian"?
Yo, hey, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
All right, great. I just wanted to touch quick and hello everyone, this is Ian Ritter, part of the Buzztouch team leaders. Glad to be here. Going back to, I think it was Tim Wolf, he was questioning about the current free users or guests being grandfathered in, months or a little over a year ago. That I think there's still some confusion that those members, those grandfathered in, should still become a member, that they need to get their membership. There's still some confusion for people that because you were grandfathered in a year ago, that some users are questioning if they actually are members or not. But if you don't have that badge, no, you're not a member.
Right, that's a great question, and maybe I wasn't clear enough on that, and I'll try to do over. That's correct. We would like you to become a member. We think that there's significant value in becoming a member. If that's not something you're comfortable with doing, and you decide that you don't want to become a member, that's completely okay, but you won't be losing anything. We won't be taking away your ability to make apps. We won't be taking away your ability to do everything you've been doing, but you won't be getting the member benefits. Hopefully that's kind of as clear as it sounds, right?
Yeah, because especially since we're on the topic of push notifications.
Right, exactly. We just simply can't afford to do it, right? We can't spend the resources, and we're talking financially now, to support push for free for the volume of people that we have. And we had to make that difficult decision. We had to decide that was something that members will get, and non-members won't. Although we're happy to show non-members, like we've been doing for a couple of years, all different kinds of solutions in terms of how to do that for free. There's other ways to do it. We're not here to necessarily, force people to pay us to become members, but we certainly believe in the value. And a lot of our users, by demonstration so far in the last couple of weeks, agree, and we hope that they do too. So that's kind of where that stands.
Cool.
Yeah, great question. So that's the end of my announcements. We went through that in about 40 minutes. That was about 6 different things that we talked about. And the future of Buzztouch in 2013 is brighter than ever. I can tell you that you may not be seeing me in the forums as often as you're used to, for those of you in this webinar. Many of the names, of course, I recognize, and I have wonderful relationships with lots of the people I see on this list. But the fact is, a lot of this technical stuff in the background just requires a lot more of my attention, than I have recently. And so the new partners that we have aboard have been really sharing the load in terms of this transitional period that we're going through. And I do hope to bring our product and our offering and our site kind of to the next level quicker and faster than I would have been, and better than I would have been able to do with our small group before. And so if you're wondering where I'm at, I've not gone anywhere. I'm just doing the best I can to kind of lead this group. And it's a challenge for me. You know, I've not done this before in terms of something this size, and, you know, we're doing the best we can. And I'm really happy and optimistic about where we'll be next year when we're having this very same conversation. And really what it boils down to is we want to continue to offer you guys more than we have been able to. And I think in the coming year, we're going to be able to add some things that we would have never been able to do without this team, and certainly not without this membership process. So we're real happy about that. Tim Wolf and Sean McKean both asked, how many members are there now by type? I'll just say a lot. I'm not comfortable sharing the actual volume of paid members versus free members. Hopefully that's not a cop-out, but I honestly don't have those figures in front of me, and we're not necessarily here to share that stuff. I can tell you that just look in the forum, the most people that use our forums have become members, which is great. And so hopefully that's not a uncomfortable answer for you, but I'm not prepared to share that stuff. I can tell you what we've been saying all along, which is we have 175,000 registered users these days. 100 and something thousand of them registered, and you know, we onboarded last year alone. So there's a large list of people that use our software. A very high percentage of those people are not members. They just haven't got to that point. We haven't, you know, put any kind of messaging or news out yet, but hopefully we can grow that number and support our team. So great question. Daku, when is self-hosted upgrade with push going to be available? We hit on that about 10 minutes ago. The idea is we were going to roll out the push. The plan is we're going to roll out the push next week on the buzztouch.com hosted site. And then once that bugs are worked out of that, we'll roll out the next release of the self-hosted control panel. So I would think that if you're a self-hosted customer, you can look for that maybe end of next week, Friday-ish, something like that. It all depends on how it goes, right? There's always a chance for issues that we need to fix, and we want to do the very best we can to release something that's as error-free as possible. David Barber, you're all doing an awesome job. Slow and steady wins the race. Thank you very much for that, David. Those compliments that you guys, you know, share with us and put in the forums and email us, and you can't imagine how motivational that stuff is. I mean, it sounds cliche, I'm sure, but without you guys, you know, this just wouldn't happen. And it's wonderful to hear that. So a sincere thank you, Mr. Barber. That's a big deal. Shane Doyen's asking, has anyone worked on an app for the forum? Yes, not in any significant, meaningful way, but one of our users, the young man who runs the meetup group in the UK, put together an interesting little, basically a WebView app that allows, I think it's called Buzztouch Learning or something. Annandale Apps is his name, nice guy. And he put together a very basic application to show forum posts, but we haven't done a high quality kind of Buzztouch official release from us application. And we do hope to do that. In fact, this is down the road, certainly down the road, but this is something that I've worked on and off for quite some time. We look forward to a day when you're using an iPad app to make your apps. And think of that as a significant improvement to the way that you control your operation now. We are a long ways away from that, but that is something that I do have in the future, in all of our futures. It makes perfect sense, right? It's logical that Buzztouch would have a sanctioned iPhone, iPad, Android app, sanctioned as in officially released from us, that has wonderful, you know, integrated technology that works closely with your self-hosted panel or your buzztouch.com panel. So that's a great question. Go ahead, Ian. Looks like Ian's got his hand up. Do I have to turn his mic on? I can never remember how this works.
No, his mic is on.
Okay.
Ian,
I got it.
Okay.
No, on my end it looks like my hand is down. So.
Well, on my end, both your hands are up. No problem. No problem. But Sean, that's a great question. Or Shane, excuse me, Shane, about the application. Sean McKean, will the self-hosted upgrade be easy? I'd like to think it's easy, but that's kind of an open-ended question. From a technical perspective, for a web developer and somebody who runs software, like a WordPress or back-end stuff, yeah, it's a pretty easy process. But there are some gotchas. It's good that you raise that. The newest version of the self-hosted software has a different install process. It's been slightly modified to try to make it easier. But it's a different kind of step. So in essence, all you're really doing is saving a copy of your existing files directory on your self-hosted server on your website and overwriting everything else. That's in essence what you're doing. And so you don't want to overwrite the files directory because that contains data right now for your apps. But good question. Mad Rod is saying, as you know, I have no programming knowledge, and Buzztouch just keeps blowing my mind away and has allowed me to create an app, a dream come true. So happy to be able to be a member. Great work. Congrats and cheers. Once again, Mad, big props to you for sticking your neck out and sharing those kinds of compliments. It may sound cheesy, but you're welcome. First off, you're welcome. But we have you guys to thank for this stuff. I could have never done this, for a while alone, and then now with this new team, certainly we couldn't do this without you. It's a big deal. And so Chad's saying, are there any plans in the future to offer ads for Android devices through the control panel, similar to how iAds works? Another great question, and another item that we've really struggled with a lot. I'd like to say yes, but there's just nothing concrete to announce. We think it makes sense that we would have a professional, high-value content provider, advertising partner. They could help us with that. The fact is for iOS, the advertising process and platforms that are out there are just easier than with Android. Android, there's a whole world of options and a whole world of complexity around how that works. But yeah, we'd definitely like to do that. And again, in the how-tos and in the resources, if you're interested, there's a few different people who have posted some documents on how to run ads in your Android app. There's a lot of cool content here. So you can do it now. It just takes a little work, that kind of stuff. Tim Wolf, any chance a copy app or use app as template type function to come to fruition? Any chance? In fact, Tim and I have been talking about this very same thing, I think for at least a year now, maybe 2 years. Tim's a wonderful part of our community and has offered a lot of value over the years, and we appreciate his insights. And he asks a very, very good question. Why can't we just click a button and copy an app? Or why can't we use an app as a template? And a couple answers there. On your self-hosted, it's much more likely that we'll get that built into the self-hosted panel before we build it into the Buzztouch.com hosted panel. And I say that for some technical reasons that we probably shouldn't go into right now. But what we can expect is being able to export from Buzztouch.com and then import into your self-hosted panel. That's kind of one part of this. The other part of this is in your self-hosted panel. It makes sense that you'll be able to copy the applications. So Tim's saying blah, blah, blah. I totally understand what you're saying. Yeah, it's on our radar. It's just a difficult challenge to solve. It's not nearly as easy as everyone thinks. Yeah, it's just a matter of us prioritizing it. And maybe if the voices are loud enough and it's that important enough, then maybe we can find a way to prioritize that. But we're not 100% against it. We just haven't totally solved all the problems with it yet. So great question. I hear you. Chad Hammer saying thanks, and definitely want to thank you and the entire Buzztouch for allowing me the ability to create apps, not only for myself but for my business to the ability to create a business out of it. You're welcome, Chad. We want to see you guys succeed. If you can't make use of this thing and you can't accomplish some of those mobile goals that you have, this whole thing goes nowhere. So you're very, very welcome. It's amazing how many inquiries we get and how many stories we get and how many kind of case studies we hear about where people are actually doing things that we never really thought that they would do. Businesses, when this thing started, the concept wasn't to see people build a business around building apps, but sure enough, a lot of our audience has begun to do that, which is wonderful. I'm going to throw out a couple of kind of requests from you guys. I've got 2 key requests. One of them you've heard me make before, and the other one you've not heard me make before. The first request that I have for you guys is I'm going to ask that you're a little bit patient, over the next week or so, or maybe even 2 weeks. The last week I was really, I struggled. Approaching New Year's last week and trying to announce this team and announce all these features and roll all this stuff out, kind of on a personal level, it's challenging and it gets overwhelming to kind of get through all these things. And we were able to successfully navigate through that first week this year. But we do, need a little bit more patience out of you, especially you members. Things like push, I expect there to be a couple of gotchas or whatever, and we don't think it's too much to ask to just kind of sit back and hang out and while we push this stuff out to you. But that's a big thing is not only do we appreciate you guys helping us in the forums, but in terms of like technical things and ideas, but we also appreciate you just kind of understanding that, we're doing the best we can. And then the second thing that I'm going to ask you guys to do is, I think it's important that we start getting some of these meetup groups back as a focus. We get a lot out of them. For those of you who haven't attended one of these little small gatherings with even just 2, 3, 4, 5 folks who understand what we're trying to do, people in our community, you get a lot out of it. That networking opportunity is hard to quantify, but a lot of opportunity comes from networking with colleagues who are in the same industry that you're in. And so part of what Warren's going to be doing is trying to organize not only where those meetups are happening, but maybe ways for us to help those meetups actually find some people to show up. And so if anybody wants to champion one of those things in your area, we've got a few of them listed on the meetup page here out of the forum. It's a very basic and elementary web page that just shows some of these groups. But if you want to spearhead something and put something together in one of your areas, awesome. I mean, it really is rewarding and beneficial, especially for the person leading that. If you're making apps anywhere remotely near professionally, there's something to be said for credibility. And when you run a little meetup group for of mobile enthusiasts, in this case, especially people who embrace the Buzztouch process, you stand to gain a lot from that. You stand to gain a lot from that. And so not only would we ask you, to maybe think about that and maybe spearhead one up, but we can tell you that you'll get more out of it than you may realize. We've got a few minutes to go here. Let me roll through my list of questions and see if there's anything here.
Hey, David, while you're doing that, let me just
Yeah,
interject myself in here.
sure.
You're right about those meetups. I would have to venture to say that a big part of this leadership group that we put together a few weeks ago was largely because of some face-to-face meetings that you were able to have with some of these people that are now our partners. And just developing those relationships, that's really the strength of what Buzztouch is all about. So I'm happy to be championing that, and anybody that needs some assistance getting people together, maybe locating people that are in your area that you don't even know about, please contact me. I'd be happy to jump in and help in whatever way I can to put that together.
Yeah, great remark there. In fact, let's go back to this About Us page, and let me talk about something that you hit on there. I got a couple of emails right at the beginning, like January 2nd or whenever this announcement came out, that sounded a little bit like this. Hey, you went to the forum and found people that have been participating and asked them to join your team. And that's only partly true, but it's mostly untrue. The fact of the matter is I traveled all over the United States literally for a year, meeting all kinds of interesting people, all kinds of impressive people that were absolutely supporters of what I was trying to do. The fact is these people are different than the rest of those folks that I met. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but I was setting out to actually put a leadership team together to run this business and run this organization and bring our customers and users something that I wasn't able to do on my own. And each of them offers something that is unique. And that could have never happened without me actually going to the freezing part of the country and the hot part of the country and the part of the country where they talk funny and all these different places I went to actually meet these folks. And that takes a lot of work, and it's exactly those relationships that I was able to establish that now kind of helped me professionally accomplish my goal. And so for you, if you can go to some of these meetup groups and associate and network with people that are like-minded and share your not just interests but your professional objectives, meaning I make money making apps, you stand to gain a lot from that. They're not necessary. You know, a lot of app developers look at it like competitors. Other app developers are not competitors. So that's interesting. So I'm going to add two more comments here from the posts, and then we'll have to break this up. Tim is asking a very technical question. Yeah, you're right. We should either jump on the phone or start an email thread about that. He was asking about how to control some of the downloads and updates and stuff about each device. Yeah, great question, but technical for this. David Barber, now that Buzztouch is becoming extremely popular, tell us that you're not going to take the first $1 billion buyout offer. We kind of like this family atmosphere you guys have. David, unfortunately, I can't tell you that I wouldn't take a check for $1 billion, but the reality of it is I don't think you don't think you can write checks that big. So you don't need to worry about that. I can tell you, though, that you know, when you do something significant like we've done, and you have an audience like we have, which is you guys that we value a great deal, and we do, as you put it, have a quote family on this site, a lot of people do inquire about getting involved with us. You know, whether you want to call that, you know, investing in us and all those kinds of things. A lot of people involve themselves, or a lot of people inquire about that stuff. But I can tell you that we generally don't entertain those types of inquiries because two biggest reasons. One is, you know, we're not going broke, right? So we don't need them as bad as they think we do. And then two is, most of those types of people who inquire, they don't really genuinely understand what we're doing. You know, they make some assumptions about us just being another site trying to make money. And yeah, we need revenue, and yeah, we do, you know, plan to profit from this, but that isn't the motive necessarily. So I doubt that somebody's going to give us $1 billion. Sean, when is Buzztouch coming back? Well, soon we hope. Chris, if you haven't noticed, is now part of our leadership team. Has been focused on a lot of other things. Hopefully, we can get that back on the air. I know that he and I are supposed to have a conversation on the next Buzzcast, which is great, or a future Buzzcast. I'm not sure which one. In fact, he's weighing in the remarks in the discussion here. He's saying, $1 billion offer. I vote we take it. I would vote with him. And if we take $1 billion, then we'll have to send a little bit to David Barber. But appreciate that. Yeah, so let's wrap this up. It's about noon. That was about an hour. I appreciate your guys' participation in this and interest in what we do. It's very, very humbling to have people all over the world help us and compliment us. I just can't say that enough times. And I'm sincere when I say we're doing the best we can to give the largest percentage of you that we can value, and we appreciate those who are supporting us in that. So, Warren, if you want to wrap us up, we'll be good.
Sure, David. Before everybody jumps off of here, of course, we've got a full schedule of webinars in the month of January. The next one is tomorrow evening, and it's a good opportunity for you to ask lots of questions. It's 90 minutes with David. You can ask your technical questions, because even with the new announcements, the business of working on apps through Buzztouch has been going on, and I'm sure you've got lots of questions you need answered. And I made a commitment that 1 out of every 4 webinars that we do will be a question and answer session to help get you on track. So that is tomorrow evening. Sign up. You can check it out in the forum. And until then, I guess we'll see you later. Thanks, everybody.